After a suspicious phone call, a granddaughter gets her 70-year-old grandmother arrested. Without knowing why, the elderly woman desperately screams that she is innocent until... Before the story begins, comment below which city you're watching this video from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Enjoy the story, everyone. The quietness of the wooden house on the outskirts of Duluth was interrupted only by the ticking of the antique clock hanging on the kitchen wall. Olivia opened her eyes in panic and jumped out of bed when she realized her alarm hadn't gone off. 7:40 in the morning. She was late for work. "Margaret, why didn't you wake me up?" she shouted, while hastily shoving her legs into faded jeans. In the small kitchen, Margaret, her grey hair tied in a loose bun, was calmly stirring a pot of oatmeal. "You looked exhausted, dear. I thought you could use a few extra minutes of sleep." Olivia gulped down a sip of coffee that was too hot, burning her tongue. At 22, she carried more responsibilities than most young people her age. There was no time for delays at the Lakeview supermarket, where she worked as a cashier 6 days a week. Every penny of that meager salary was meticulously saved in a shoebox under her bed. Her college fund, a dream that seemed to slip through her fingers like water. "I'm going to miss the 8 o'clock bus," she muttered, stuffing a piece of toast into her mouth while adjusting her badge on her faded blue uniform. "Be careful out there. It snowed overnight," Margaret warned, her blue eyes, so similar to Olivia's, shining with maternal concern. The relationship between Olivia and her grandmother was the only safe harbor in a life full of absences. There were no photographs of her parents on the walls of the house, no stories about her childhood. When Olivia asked about the past, Margaret deflected the subject with the skill of someone who had practiced that dance for many years. "I'll be back at 6, Olivia shouted, slamming the door as she left. The world outside was frozen, typical of January in Duluth. The icy air burned her lungs as she ran along the slippery sidewalk. A block away, the bus was already closing its doors. "Wait!" she shouted, quickening her pace without noticing the traffic light that had just turned red. That's when time seemed to slow down. The roar of a motorcycle broke the morning silence. Olivia turned her head just in time to see the gleam of metal rapidly approaching. She felt the impact before she even processed the danger, a blunt blow that threw her through the air like a rag doll. Her head hit the asphalt. The gray Minnesota sky spun above her. For a brief moment, she thought she heard Margaret's worried voice calling her name, but perhaps it was just memory echoing like a scratched record. The darkness came suddenly, but it wasn't frightening. It was like diving into a deep lake of black velvet, silent and strangely welcoming. Her last thought before succumbing was that Margaret would be worried if she was late for dinner. When consciousness returned, it came in confused fragments, the smell of antiseptic, the rhythmic beeping of machines, distant and indistinct voices. Olivia tried to open her eyes, but her eyelids seemed to weigh tons. That's when she heard it, broken words floating through the fog of semi-consciousness. "Thank you for donating blood for her. You know I'm not compatible and I'm too old anyway." Margaret's voice trembling with emotion. "I owe her this much," replied an unfamiliar female voice, yet strangely familiar. Olivia struggled to open her eyes. Through blurred vision, she made out 2 silhouettes, Margaret with her familiar stooped posture, and a taller woman, her back to the hospital bed. Before Olivia could see her face, the woman hurriedly left the room. "Who was that?" Olivia asked in a hoarse voice when Margaret approached the bed. "Just a hospital volunteer, dear," her grandmother answered, nervously adjusting the blanket. "How are you feeling?" "Like I was hit by a motorcycle." Olivia tried to smile, but the pain in her ribs stopped her. "That woman, did she say she donated blood for me?" Margaret's eyes widened for an instant. "The hospital had enough blood, dear. We didn't need a donor. You must have imagined things because of the medication." But it wasn't imagination. During the 3 days of recovery in the hospital, Olivia couldn't forget that voice. And even more disturbing, the fleeting glimpse she'd had of the woman's face. It was like looking at an older version of herself. When she was finally discharged, the questions continued to simmer in her mind. In the small wooden house, everything seemed the same, but something fundamental had changed inside Olivia. Like pieces of a puzzle that didn't fit, she began to notice the gaps in her own story. "Why don't we have any pictures of when I was a baby?" she asked one night as Margaret knitted beside the heater. "You know we lost everything in that fire," Margaret replied without looking up from her knitting. The same explanation as always. a fire when Olivia was 2 years old before they moved to Duluth. No additional details, no elaboration. 2 weeks after the accident, Olivia was strong enough to return to work. On her way back, she detoured to the Duluth Public Library, an imposing stone building that housed not only books, but also archives of local and regional newspapers. "Can I help you?" asked the librarian, a lady with thick glasses and a kind smile. "I'm researching about my family," Olivia replied hesitantly. "Do you have archives of old newspapers?" In the hours that followed, Olivia immersed herself in dusty microfilms, searching without knowing exactly what for. It was when she decided to expand her search to Minneapolis, the closest big city, that she found something. A small, almost insignificant article dated 20 years ago. Child kidnapped by babysitter still missing. The photo showed a well-to-do couple, Thomas and Stephanie Miller, holding the portrait of a baby. The child's name, Olivia Miller. The name of the babysitter accused of the kidnapping, Margaret Wilson. Olivia's world collapsed. With trembling fingers, she printed the article and continued searching. She found more reports mentioning the fruitless search for the missing child and the fugitive babysitter. The physical descriptions matched her and Margaret perfectly. That night, sitting at the desk in her room, Olivia stared at the pile of articles under the dim light of the lamp. Her stomach twisted in knots as the implications of that discovery took shape in her mind. The woman she loved as a grandmother, who had raised her with care and dedication, could be a kidnapper. The sound of the front door opening indicated that Margaret had returned from her weekly book club meeting. Olivia quickly hid the articles in the drawer and took a deep breath. She needed more information before confronting Margaret. And more importantly, she needed to find the mysterious woman from the hospital, the woman whose appearance and blood suggested a connection that Olivia could barely comprehend. In the days that followed, Olivia lived in an emotional limbo. During the day, she acted normally, smiled at customers in the supermarket, prepared dinner with Margaret, watched her favorite TV shows. But inside, a storm was brewing. Using the library computer, Olivia managed to locate Thomas and Stephanie Miller. They still lived in Minneapolis, and surprisingly, it wasn't difficult to find a phone number. What was difficult was gathering the courage to dial. On a rainy Friday, Olivia finally called from a payphone near work. "Miller residence," a female voice answered. Olivia's throat went dry. "My name is Olivia. I believe I might be your daughter." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening, then a muffled sob. "Where are you?" The voice now trembled. 3 hours later, a black car parked in front of Olivia and Margaret's house. From the vehicle emerged a tall man with graying hair, an elegant woman with an anxious expression, and 2 uniformed police officers. Olivia watched from the window, her heart beating like a drum. When the doorbell rang, Margaret was in the kitchen preparing a stew. "I'll get it," Olivia said, walking as if in a dream to the door. The couple's faces lit up when they saw her. The woman, Stephanie, brought her hands to her mouth, her eyes watering. "It's her, Thomas. It's our girl." Before any explanation could be given, Margaret appeared in the hallway, drying her hands on her apron. Her face paled at the sight of the visitors. "What's going on, Olivia?" One of the police officers stepped forward, holding a document. "Margaret Wilson, you're being detained on charges of kidnapping." "No!" Olivia shouted, surprising everyone, including herself. "Please, let her explain. She deserves that. I need to hear it from her." After a tense moment, Thomas Miller nodded to the officers. 5 minutes. On the small living room sofa, Margaret seemed to have shrunk, her shoulders hunched under the weight of 2 decades of secrets. Silent tears rolled down her wrinkled cheeks. "I never wanted to hurt you, my love," she began, her voice shaky. "Everything I did was to protect you." Margaret told how she had been hired by the Millers to care for Olivia when she was a baby, how she noticed strange marks on the child's body, bruises, small burns, how a neighbor named Rebecca, who strangely resembled Olivia, expressed similar concerns. "One day I overheard a conversation between Thomas and Stephanie," Margaret continued, looking directly at the couple who now seemed uncomfortable. "They were talking about how much money they would make with this one. I didn't understand at first, until I discovered about other children, other suspicious adoptions." Thomas's eyes narrowed. "This is absurd. Let's take this criminal. Let her finish." Olivia interrupted, with unexpected firmness in her voice. Margaret continued, explaining how she discovered that Thomas and Stephanie were not Olivia's biological parents. They were part of a scheme that bought babies from vulnerable mothers and sold them to rich families, often mistreating the children in the process. Rebecca, Margaret discovered, was actually Olivia's biological mother, a young single mother who had given her daughter away for what she believed was a legitimate adoption. "That night I took you in my arms and fled," Margaret concluded, looking at Olivia with pleading eyes. "It was technically kidnapping, yes, but it was the only way to save you." A heavy silence filled the room. The officers exchanged uncertain glances. Thomas and Stephanie looked furious, but also frightened. "This is completely false," declared Stephanie, but her voice trembled. "Then why did the woman at the hospital, who looks so much like me, donate compatible blood for me?" Olivia asked, staring directly at the couple. "It was Rebecca, wasn't it? My real mother." The days that followed were a whirlwind. Margaret was taken by the police, but Olivia refused to go with the Millers, choosing to stay in the house she had always known. Determined to discover the whole truth, she began a tireless search for Rebecca, the mysterious woman from the hospital. The answer came faster than expected. A week after Margaret's detention, Olivia found a woman standing on her porch, watching the snow fall gently. "You must be Rebecca," Olivia said, immediately recognizing the face she had seen at the hospital. "And you're Olivia," Rebecca smiled sadly. Her eyes, the same blue eyes as Olivia's, reflected a mixture of pain and hope. "I've been looking for you for a long time." Inside the house, sitting at the small kitchen table where Olivia had grown up, Rebecca revealed her story. At 17, pregnant and abandoned by her boyfriend, she had given her baby to an agency that promised a better life for the child. Only years later did she discover that the agency was actually a front for a criminal scheme run by the Millers and other couples. "When I discovered the truth, you had already disappeared with Margaret," explained Rebecca, holding her cup of tea with trembling hands. "I spent years looking for both of you, never losing hope." "How did you find me now?" asked Olivia. "I work as a nurse at Duluth General Hospital," Rebecca explained. "When I saw your name on the patient list after the accident, I couldn't believe it. I had to see with my own eyes." Her voice broke. "You look identical to me at your age." Margaret's trial became a public revelation of the Millers' practices. Other victims came forward, telling similar stories of fraudulent adoptions and mistreatment. Financial records revealed an extensive child trafficking scheme that stretched across several states. In the Duluth courthouse, Olivia testified in Margaret's defense, describing the loving and secure childhood she had had under her care. Rebecca also testified, confirming that she had been deceived by the Millers when giving up her newborn daughter. "Mrs. Wilson committed a crime by taking Olivia," declared the judge in the final pronouncement, "but she did so to protect a child in imminent danger." Considering the exceptional circumstances and the testimony of the victims, this court acquits Margaret Wilson of all charges. The Millers, on the other hand, faced serious accusations. The evidence was overwhelming: falsified documents, testimonies from other families, incriminating bank records. The empire they had built crumbled like a house of cards. On a sunny spring afternoon, 3 months after the accident that had changed everything, Olivia sat in the small backyard garden between Margaret and Rebecca. The air carried the scent of the first flowers and a sense of new beginnings. "What happens now?" asked Olivia, looking at the two women who represented such different chapters of her life. "That depends on you, dear," replied Margaret, her wrinkled hands gently caressing Olivia's. "Your life is yours to decide." Rebecca nodded. "I lost 20 years I could have spent with you. I don't want to lose another day, but I understand if you need time." Olivia contemplated the blue Minnesota sky, feeling a strange peace despite everything that had happened. The truth, however painful, had been liberating. "I think we have a lot to catch up on," she finally said. "All of us." That summer, Olivia finally used her savings, not for college, but to buy a larger house on the outskirts of Duluth, big enough for 3 women who were learning to be a family. Margaret, acquitted but still dealing with the guilt of her own choices, found redemption in Rebecca's forgiveness. And Rebecca, who had lost her daughter once, discovered that maternal love knows no time limits. As for Olivia, she enrolled at the University of Minnesota in Duluth in the fall, studying social work, inspired by her own story to help other children and families. On campus, when asked about her family, she smiled. "I have two mothers," she would reply simply. "One gave birth to me, the other saved me, and together they taught me that family isn't defined by blood or law, but by the choices we make out of love." In the house by Lake Superior, three women united by extraordinary circumstances found something rare and precious: a second chance. An opportunity to redefine the meaning of family on their own terms, weaving a new pattern with the broken threads of the past. Wow! We hope that Olivia, Margaret, and Rebecca's journey touched your heart. If this story about true family bonds moved you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give that special like. Every interaction motivates us to keep bringing stories that touch emotions. We're here every day with narratives ranging from drama to overcoming challenges, so explore our channel to find your next favorite story. And let's not keep secrets like Margaret. Share in the comments what you thought of this Duluth story and which character touched your heart the most. We'll be back tomorrow with another surprising story that will make you rethink the bonds that unite us.